Welcome to the Protector Culture Podcast with Jimmy Graham. Jimmy is a veteran U.S. Navy SEAL, a former protective officer for the CIA Global Response Staff, founder and CEO of the Able Shepherd Program, a husband and father of 4, and a personal friend of mine. Now here's Jimmy.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Protector Culture Podcast with Jimmy Graham. I'm your host, Jimmy Graham. Joining me once again, my friends and yours, Don Jones, Able Shepherd 005. What's up, brother?
Glad to be here.
Glad to have you. And back from Montana, back in town for a special event. We are lucky to have the 86er Jason Campbell, Able Shepherd, obviously 86. What's up, brother?
Hey, man, I made it back.
You made it back.
I love being
here.
here.
Missed you. It's been too long.
I miss you guys.
How many days was that? 5?
Maybe.
Yep.
Couldn't get back here fast enough.
Special thanks to Leslie for sharing you once again.
Yes.
You did tell me a little bit of wisdom is that you got back and not immediately asked if you could come back to Colorado.
I was wise enough to not immediately ask for that. I gave it about a 36-hour buffer, and we had a harmonious outcome, and here I am.
Awesome.
Yes.
Well, I know that she didn't bat an eye, and she basically said, get back down there and get back to it. Said something. I don't even know if I can share that. It's like, hey, man, that'd be cool if we had a place down there or something like that, which makes me feel good on the inside.
Yep, she
cool.
did say
So
that.
thank you, Leslie. Appreciate that. Also want to thank Old West Barbecue. Obviously, we are not in our regular venue. We are at one of my favorites in Castle Rock. We were talking about where we could have this podcast, and I was driving home last night. I was like, where do I eat all the time? Swung through the drive-through. Randy doesn't even have the lobby open typically, and he said, hey, you guys can come in here and do, I told him what we did, and he said, hey, get in here, Jimmy. So very, very cool. So thanks to my brother Randy over there making it happen. You drive by this place, you smell smoked meat, and for years I used to have, you guys might not know this, right down the street was the Duty to Act, the original building. So for years I drove by this place. I would come here for lunch. I'd go off and do special events to train police and fire and EMS and all that, and I'd bring those guys in here. We'd load up on breakfast burritos and then hit the road to head out to the western slope.
Yeah,
so
great,
very, very
great
cool.
breakfast burritos.
Great food, man. So this episode we're going to be talking about. We're going to wrap up. Last time we left you, we were hitting the road for the Justice for Stevie ride. So we want to talk with these guys that were on there. BK as well. Oh, I forgot to introduce. We got BK, the world famous BK, back on the.
That's right.
Making it all happen. What's up, brother?
Doing great. Glad to be on this side of the camera.
Feel free, my brother. BK gets to do whatever he wants, so you can chime in whenever you want. If you think of something we're leaving out, you got a question or a comment. Very, very cool to sum it up was that several bikes, up to 6, I believe. Or no, actually more. Was that the max?
6?
I'm thinking 6, yeah, because it was total 10. So 10 people. 6 bikes. 2 father-son crews that were running, call it rescue, call it support team, whatever, in case there was an emergency, we'd get somebody out of there. And we wanted to spend time, obviously, with our sons and just be around these guys. So it was unbelievable. It was amazing. Want to walk through with these guys, kind of their memories of that. We'll kind of take it chronologically, and throughout, we'll just pop out some questions about gear, and about your experience and all that stuff. We'll hit it for about 30 minutes. Sound good?
Sounds
good to me.
Cool. Yep. So, Justice for Stevie, my brother Steve led this ride. Stevie, my great niece, so his granddaughter, horrible situation that we kind of told you about on the last podcast if you followed with that. His granddaughter, the girlfriend of his son, and then had a boyfriend. It was just a horrible child abuse situation that she didn't survive. We are still looking for justice in that case, and it's horrible. So we wanted to honor her life, help with my family's healing, particularly my brother, his wife, was your grandma Val, just amazing lady, and then my nephew Lucky. So we wanted to be a part of that and just honor her life, and then remind people that this is still a thing. This happens, and yes, there's a bunch of distractions going on right now, but it's our job and duty to protect and see justice for our young people, our little ones, and that is in fact our future. So we headed out on the BDR. With him kind of making the calls. The first one was Castle Rock to Dolores. So when you saw us, we're here in South Denver, actually out at Everett's place, and Melissa walked through the gear and all that, saying, hey, we've got a plan to head out, and this is what we've got. We'll find out how all that stuff panned out and favorite gear and all that kind of stuff. First off, how'd you guys feel about your setups? You guys kind of walked through what you had on your bikes. Work out good?
Go ahead, Jason.
Setups on the bike. I went with the same setup that I've used for several other very long distance rides, meaning hard boxes on the sides and then dry bags on top of those hard boxes. And I knew this ride was going to have more technical sections. I certainly knew that there was risk of the bike going down, and I was willing to do that with those hard boxes. And so one of the risks of that is that when a solid meets a solid, that energy has to go somewhere, and so
And it did.
And it did. It did indeed. And so those boxes look different today.
They have character now.
They have character.
They've got great stories. So, that was the general setup. And then we can get into however much detail we want.
I love
after.
this. I think it might have been over breakfast. Hey, brother, do you have a hammer? I'm like, I do. It's right here in the truck.
It's right here in the truck, yeah. There was, the bike had to go to the custom shop a couple of
That's
those
right.
mornings before breakfast. And so Camp's waking up to the echo of hammer on metal. And as it turns out, the lid's still closed. And that's probably how I'll run that bike for the foreseeable future.
You happy with her? Do you guys name your bikes?
Mine's a little different than like what a lot of guys name their bikes. I know one of the brand new bikes got a name on this ride, and so that's Everett's bike, brand new. His bike got a name on this ride. Mine's just the War Pony, and
That's right.
so we've gone into many battles together, and we're still making it out the tail end of those.
What's Everett's? What's the name?
Dolores.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely.
How about you?
Yeah. My bike was new to me, but it's an old bike. So I ended up with the oldest bike on the trip, and I'm the oldest guy on the trip. But we did great. I had a great time. But I got an 02 F650 GS Dakar, which is just really cool to have a Dakar, which is African. So I kept trying to come up with all these African themes. So it did awesome. It has all kinds of power. Really happy with the bike. So I named it a little lion cub. So one of these days it's going to grow up and be a Simba.
Happy with it, both of you, with the setup and the way they performed?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was real happy with my bike in terms of power and weight, and I think I had a real advantage over these guys. I think I'm probably also the least skilled rider of the group, but I had a bike that really helped me a lot. It was a lot less weight, shorter, just a lot easier to handle. And I got bags, and I was happy on going down from Council Rock to Dolores on the highway. I led that section of the ride, and I was able to keep up and kind of lead the group down there. And the bags hold all my gear, and I had a dry bag on top with all the camping gear. But when we got into the technical stuff and we're bouncing around and kind of hammering it, those factory stock bags are made out of plastic or composite or something. And if I would have taken a digger and laid it down, I think I would have busted them all up. So Brian and Alex put up with me all week long and carried all my gear in the back of their truck, and then I just tagged along at the back and did great.
I think that was pretty awesome because I was right behind you, so I could kind of see you progressing through. I know you got some, you're a dirt bike rider from, growing up, right?
Yeah, but that was like 40-some years ago.
Well, it's funny because I wouldn't say you weren't cautious the whole time, but you were very cautious at the beginning.
Yeah.
And I could almost see the day when it kind of clicked and you just left me. Because I felt like I was hanging with you for a while, and then it's not like it got easier. It was actually harder terrain, and you just took off. So I had a regular cab short box Tundra, which is kind of hard to find. Went up to Montana and grabbed that. Ran in front of BK, so I had a little more ground clearance as far as technology and suspension and all that. Here's to eat mine for lunch, but I found out quickly that the little bit of lift, it was just a 3 in front, 2 in the back, and then a key thing flipped my hitch. So I had a hitch just in case we needed to pull a trailer in there to salvage a bike or something. But got in there, unlocked it, flipped it over so that most of I got more ground clearance on departure. So it went up, and you didn't.
My key was at home with the boat that normally is towed, so you could probably call me tail hook.
There you go.
We left a lot of scrapes on rocks and dirt.
I wondered why you didn't turn that over. That makes sense now.
It was a nice rudder going through the rivers, though.
Yeah.
And we got some awesome footage of you cutting through a couple rivers. That was pretty awesome. So Castle Rock to Dolores, we head down there. It was cool when we first hit dirt, and we had that little powwow, everybody good to go. Launched into that one. Everett took a look and said, "Hey man, I'm on my dirt bike," and took up and went to challenge a pretty challenging hill. Didn't work out the way he planned. So we had the first, what he saw at first, he called it first kiss.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that beautiful orange KTM sliding on those rocks, and I was like, oh. But he got up to a point, and some of these, when you get that heavy, and you got to get out from under it, just get away from it. Because we had some buddies that went out a week before, and got pinned twice underneath his knee, underneath his bike, and that's bad stuff. So
Well, one thing
just-
Everett told me was relatively new KTM has these electronics. Let's just call it, traction control, ABS.
Yeah.
And the bike tried to outdrive him.
Oh,
so
yeah,
what
yeah.
he eventually had to do was turn off
Yeah.
a lot of the automated
Yeah, that's right.
safety.
Yep.
And he could control the bike better. And he kissed the dirt once, and that was the last
That
time.
was the last time.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, he's a good rider.
He is very good.
Once he picked it up, it was hard to keep up. We'd see he'd be gone, and then we'd have somebody stop, and he'd come back like, "Where you guys at?"
I didn't have any of those fancy electronics on my old Lion Cub.
There you go. So, got started on that. Some pretty cool. Like we were cutting what seems to be private property, but there's cattle in there. There's a road that cuts through. It wasn't. It was part of the route where you'd have to actually pull the fence off, get everybody through, and then close up. That was pretty neat. And then off to Telluride. Telluride. By the time we got down there, we had a decision. I did hear that Black Bear Pass was closed. It's been closed to a landslide even when we were out there. So I didn't see anybody really coming down other than from Bridal Veil Falls. But I didn't know. It was later in the day. I had to make a command decision. The decision was made to not tackle that one as the first real challenge after everybody had been on the road for over half a day. So on that one, what was the one that we went up? Imogene. And that was no joke either. So going up that thing in my truck with my 6-year-old son right there, it definitely gets your attention. Looking down, looking over at him and not seeing anything over there. And you thinking that the edge is right there, and a couple, they get really, really narrow. And then you have to crawl over some man-made bridges that gap that they've made so you can cross some of these little gaps. So,
What was Christian's response after you got down?
if we got down, he was it wasn't as big a deal. When we were going up there, he was like, Dad, this is scary and all that stuff. And then by the time we did that one, and then we had so many more, he just got used to it, and it just wasn't a big deal. So it was pretty cool that he got used to that stuff. And then I did worry about the 11,000 foot camping, sleeping that night. So we bought those little oxygen, little boost bottles and all that stuff, and didn't need them. I gave him one to play with, a little one. And he was just like, he every time he saw it, he'd just pick it up and just, so it's something to play with, and it may have helped him or whatever, but sleeping, there were no issues. So that was good to find that out.
That's good. That was great having him on the trip, by the way, too.
Yeah, it was.
Oh, yeah, thanks, guys. That meant the world to me, because I know right when we got to Alta Lakes, we got there, we got set, and you guys were still out. Some of you guys were still out there on the trail. We went back. I pulled his little electric razor motorbike, pulled it out on the street, and he sat there all geared up. And when you guys came over, I pointed, and he led everybody back to camp. Man, he was 10 foot tall. It was super. He was like so nervous that I was like, go down to the street, go by Don's bike. As soon as they come back, you come back. So he goes out, comes back, and he's like, I went out to his bike, and he's like, oh yeah, I was supposed to wait for him. And he goes back and waits for him. And then I go back, and like, right when you see him come over the hill, head back to camp, takes off. I'm like, wait, you got to wait until they come, whatever. He couldn't even keep his thoughts straight. It was awesome, and he loved it. So very, very cool. Anything on Alta Lakes other than it being fantastic? And thank you to your family.
Yeah, great
for
big
meeting us
shout out to Marty and Craig and their daughters.
Emmeline and Elodie.
Yeah, so that was fantastic.
For sure.
And they had a really cool story about their exchange program with the French ski area.
Yeah.
They've been over to France a couple of times, and it just kind of reinforced the idea that it can be a really small world if you reach out to other people and experience other cultures. And I believe their first daughter was born over there, and both their daughters are fluent in French. And very, very cool to hear that story.
Neat family, got out there, secured us a camp spot so we weren't left hanging when we got in there late with everybody camping out there. So we got to hang out with them for a bit. They didn't stay the night, but we camped, ate dinner. They provided tacos. It's fantastic.
So good.
Homemade.
Headed back. All right. Got up in the morning, kind of checked out, got a couple pics, and then headed to Lake City. Anybody have anything on that leg that stands out to you?
For me, one thing I enjoyed was when we left the Alta Lakes campsite was the ghost town, mining town. Remember we went up the hill and I was told the story. That's where Nikola Tesla ran his first long distance power line.
That's
right
fantastic.
there where we camped.
Yeah.
History, baby.
And then
Part of
Ophir
history.
Pass to start the day.
Well, yeah, we just kind of glazed over Imogene Pass, and that was a legit climb on those big bikes. Like if you're on a little 250cc two-stroke, it's a playground. When you're on a 1200cc fully loaded bike, there's a lot to pay attention to, and there's tight switchbacks, loose dirt, big cobble to go over that's loose. It was a lot of work, and that was on the first real day of riding, and
That's learning how to swim by jumping off the boat.
that is, and then
That's John Wayne swimming right there.
There you go.
Hondo, just throw him in. And
Well, and I'm glad you said that.
picking
'cause
that bike up at 12,000 feet's no easy task.
The book that we kind of referenced said that was a moderate
Yeah.
trail.
was that from the Jeep community?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think moderate for them is, so I think a difficult would probably be rock climbing. You know what I mean? Rock, with the suspensions that articulate and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, how is this moderate? The edge is right there, those climbs, and just to kind of get an understanding of this is watching some of these videos where guys are going downhill, both wheels are locked and they're sliding. You're like, that's a steep descent, or an ascent that's so steep. To get the speed to keep going, you're digging a hole with the back tire.
Right.
Like, or you let off and then you can't start again, or you dig a hole.
Right.
But then when your front end's hopping, the ledge is right there and it might be 1,000 feet down. So it was impressive. It was intimidating a little bit for me back there, looking at it saying, I wish I was on my bike. Obviously, glad that I was there with Christian.
Yeah.
And doing that. But heading up there, I'm watching you guys doing this and watching you learn. And with every minute going by, you're getting better and better and better. And I'm a little bit jealous, but loved, obviously being there with my son.
Well, and I think it ended up a mistake that we watched that video of the guy driving off the cliff into the Devil's Punch Bowl prior to the trip.
Yeah.
So don't recommend that.
Don't do that.
Adam John, what's up, brother? Okay, so Lake City, I remember we held up there, a neat little hotel. Christian's playing football. That's the one that stands out about that was he was like, he loved that place. Like, I love this place because he liked the hotel. Rachel had made a chili, so we cooked that up that night. And then we were playing footballs. Before we left, about a little football, or no, they had a football, and he was running. I was doing the slow-mo catch. He couldn't catch the ball. And I go, hey, that little girl's watching because the owner's daughter was around there. Of course he catches that one. Slow-mo, perfect.
Yeah, you'll have to send that over so we can roll it into this video. It was fantastic.
I have to save that one for high school, too. I'd like to see that when he's older.
So then off to Buena Vista. So Buena Vista, you want to give a shout out to your family. We got out there, and that was just a perfect place to kind of just unwind and set up.
Yeah, so the route from Lake City to Buena Vista dropped us off in Buena Vista, and we were hosted by my brother-in-law and his wife, Mike and Nancy Picard, and they opened up their place, and he put up a great big giant army tent for us to sleep in, and has a great big garage he calls the Tajma Garage. That's jam-packed with Jeep stuff. He's a big-time Jeep guy and hosts this massive Jeep trip in the fall in September called the Colorado Flat Fender Club Leaf Trip.
Awesome.
So, we had access to a washing machine and a shop and showers and place to hang out under the stars. And Neil came up and made some fantastic meals for us. And we had kind of initially decided or planned on having a day to go hit a bunch of local trails. Mm-hmm. And I think everybody was a little bit more tuckered out than we planned because everybody just kind of hung out and took care of stuff. And we did some work on a project that Mike had for his Flat Fender Club coming up, and he appreciated that. So, ended up a great day off. My wife came up, and Steve Klein came up. A few other guys came up. It was good.
Cool. So we had our down day in Buena Vista. Again, thanks Mike and Nancy. That the patio with the under portion and all that was just a perfect place for us to kind of just hang out, grab good. We weren't really hurting on food this trip.
No.
We planned on freeze dried. So we've got Mountain House and the little jet boils, and we're going to boil water. We ended up with, what was it, ribs and steaks and chili and tacos, and so we were doing okay.
I don't know what Pinkham bought at Costco, but it was
It was so good. It was so
huge.
good.
What was it, like a tenderloin roast or something?
Yeah.
And cut them into steaks, and man, that hits
That
the
was
spot.
the ticket.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if his selection or Pete's flipping.
Oh yeah,
Pete's flipping on the grill. One or the other made for a fantastic
teamwork
steak.
makes the dream work.
Yeah.
Then we're off to Gypsum. So in Gypsum, I've got a friend served with in the Navy, Jennifer and Justin. Justin is out there. He's in the Vail Police Department on the SWAT team. So shout out to those guys. Back in the blue, support you guys, love you guys.
Yep.
And reached out to them, and without skipping a beat, they reached out to a law enforcement buddy that has a ranch out there. Just another amazing spot, and the people along the way when you set out on something like this, they just come out of the woodwork, and that you get to meet and kind of hear a little bit about their story. It was a field out there where we got to set up tents and get all our stuff together and set everything up. They cooked burgers and dogs and brats and all that kind of stuff that night. Sat down, had a beer, just kind of caught up. It was kind of tuckered out, so it wasn't a long night. But I'll never forget that one. As we go out there, Don launches his podcast or the Zoom meeting
BK
on the preparation deal.
Yeah.
Both you guys from the farmhouse.
Yep.
While we're out camping, because they did have Wi-Fi out at the farmhouse, and Jason, me, and Christian are laying in that country road. It's private property. It's not like us travel on there. We're laying out there, seeing more stars than you'll ever see in Denver, and just watching these shooting stars scream across for what, an hour and a half, 2 hours, something like that. And Don gets done, walks by not too far off. I'm like, did he see us? I don't think he saw us. We're just like laying in the road.
It was in condition white.
You,
awesome stuff.
Jimmy, you skipped right to the night in the ranch. One of the interesting things was that morning when we left, we had to go through BV. And so it's interesting that today we're sitting in this place known for these breakfast burritos, and when we're in BV, we're all Maverick or something, fueling up, eating gas station food. Here comes Jimmy Graham, obviously finds the best burrito place in BV, and
I wasn't alone, actually, because right when I'm standing there buying burritos, somebody else pulls up. Lori Jones comes up. She's like, I'd had this yesterday or something. You're like, these are fantastic.
She didn't tell me that.
Yeah,
she didn't bring one for me.
This protein bar is great, Jimmy. I'm glad you got that burrito.
You're sucking down sea rations over there, and I'm like, right. So that was, I forgot, I want to mention that too, because this was really cool for me, during that time, I broke off, jumped on the highway, aired back up, because we deflated our tires, we gripped it, whatever, rocks, aired back up. Plan was to shoot out, caught up, after being, gone for several days. Just wanted to see Rachel and the girls were in Vail. So they went out there and had a little get together with the ladies, some ladies from this community with their daughters as well. So they're hanging out in hotels and they're swimming in the pool. They're doing all that stuff. So we got to shoot off and have lunch with them. So super cool. Vail's got that little walking mall, whatever you call it. Went out there and had some pizza and hung out with the kids and all that kind of stuff. And me and Christian are just dirty, man. We're just nasty. We're pulling up.
Smell like campfire.
Yeah, just a man. He shows up, smell like a campfire, and we're telling stories. He's telling his mom, and she's, she hasn't seen him for 3 days, so she's like, get over here, and she's loving on him. So super cool. So we stop at the burrito place, pull up, we're gonna top off gas. Oh no, it's getting air. And I look over and I see you guys, and I got this big old, I'm just got the guilty grin, big old, half of it was like insane. You're like, what you got there? I'm like, nope, nothing.
Nothing.
Forgot that part.
Oops.
So, let's see, from Gypsum, that was kind of cool. The Gypsum, because of the fires, exit 140 at Gypsum is as far west as you could go. So as we were crossing right over the top of that overpass, they're about to turn us away when we said, we're not going west, we're going north. So they pulled the cones and let us scoot up there. Jason was saying we probably, if it had been low light, seen the fire from where we crossed over, but it was daytime. So saw smoke and all that stuff, but we didn't actually see the wildfires that were happening, so they didn't affect us much. Let's see. Then on to Steamboat.
Well, wait a minute, though. Gypsum was I think a pretty busy day because Steve Osborne put his bike down in about, a foot of fine powder
Moon
sand.
dust. That's right.
When you're on a big bike, None of those days I thought were easy. There was no just gimmies, because if you stopped paying attention for a second, anything can happen.
Right.
And so that ride out of Gypsum, and you're in a foot deep of sheetrock dust,
Powder.
and
Powder.
you have to learn that. Like, what do you do there? How do you treat it? And so, are you, like, I did it wrong the first one. I mean, I didn't go down, but I did it wrong. I got away with it, where I didn't brake before it. I hit the brakes when I was in it, so it loads all the weight on the front wheel, and then the bike's just doing crazy things, and then you have to accelerate out of it. And, well, if you treat it like water, you're doing all of your braking first, and then when you get to that stretch, and these are like, I don't know, 100-yard long stretches of deep stuff, then you're trying to accelerate all the way through it so your weight's back, and then you could navigate your way through it. And Steve-O figured out the hard way.
He looked like a powdered donut.
Oh, man.
He was head to toe white powder dust.
I can't
He's a
remember
big
corner.
guy, and all I saw was this big, every bit of him covered in that stuff.
He needs to be renamed Casper, because he was covered in white powder.
And I don't know about you guys, but back in the truck, I couldn't tell. The sand was like camouflaged. All of a sudden, I felt a sink.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You couldn't see it and anticipate.
No, so you couldn't see the terrain underneath. You couldn't tell there was big holes, and it's kind of like going through water.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's so dusty. You guys are kicking up dust. We're coming through there.
Yeah.
And I remember just being like, I'm back. If I can't see, I'm stopping because I'm going to run over Don. It's
That's true. I was worried about you running over me all week. That's why I tried not to wreck so hard.
Be dozing off and just go right over top of Don.
Well, and one of the really helpful things, like through all of this ride, is having the comms and the helmet.
Yeah.
And so that does a bunch of things. Whoever's on point, and really it just Everett's riding style, it worked out really well to have him on point. So he's telling the rest of the riders if there's oncoming traffic, so you have lane discipline going. And then also if there's, through a technical section, it's what line did he pick, and was that the right line, or pick, left side of the road, right
Sure.
side of the road, those kinds of things. And so that really sped up the curve too in getting through that stuff.
That's kind of cool with that stuff, is there's a certain etiquette out there for four-wheelers, and guys that are really into this know this, and if you don't know, you got to learn real quick. Is like, going up, I think it was Emmeline, when you're climbing, you've got the right of way.
Uphill.
Because if you have to hit the brakes, A, you might not get started again, and B, if you start backing down, you might not recover.
How do I know that?
But like,
I think almost all of us know that one.
a couple times getting up there, with even my truck, it was like if you start backing up a little bit, and I've heard like on some climbs you can go back and reverse leave it because you're in 4 low, and it just you got to drive at that point. If you start locking up the brakes, you're going to lose control, and now you get turned sideways and all that stuff. So to be climbing up there, I remember going, no, don't do it. Like, nobody come around that corner because there's nowhere to go.
Right.
But for somebody backing uphill, it's not as big a deal. If you start backing downhill, most of your braking being in the front, now you're trying to claw that rock when the angle doesn't work out, and
Yeah.
it definitely had your attention.
Yep.
We ran into some guys on a really sharp switchback on day 2 coming over to Lake City. I don't remember exactly where it was. Bunch of Jeep guys, and some of them were really cool, making room for us and everything else, but there were a couple instances where people are just bombing along in a hurry and
Yeah.
just tearing it up.
Got the AC on, getting frustrated, like, come on already. It's like, I got an appointment back in the city. It's like, go home.
Exactly.
Yeah. Most of the, I love seeing those people go out and rent the OHVs, those off-highway vehicles, what side-by-sides, whatever you want to call them, and the American, remember that, it looked like a parade. Just
Yeah.
American flags, kids, one lady's holding the dog, and it was like a family.
Yeah.
They're caked in dust, and it was just cool. We're like, we stood there and watched them, and America, and me and
Yeah.
Christian are yelling at them. But
Yep.
it's super cool, man, getting outside and doing that with family.
That was in Animas Forks, which, if you've never been down there, is a
Beautiful.
really cool place.
Super
There's a house that's almost totally complete still,
Yep.
built in the 1800s, and then a bunch of ruins. It was a neat place to hang out for a rest break.
Yes.
So where we're at, Steamboat. Did we say Steamboat? So we had a amazing camp spot at Steamboat. Fire, You went and grabbed Christian some marshmallows, so he was content zipping around on the motor. Actually, you took him for a couple rides around to go get something.
Just let him drive.
Cool spot overlooking the lake. Woke up in the morning when I cracked. I was sleeping in the back of the truck. Popped that thing open. There's like a deer and a couple fawns sitting right there in the middle of our. I tried to get a picture, but they'd already moved off a little bit, so the picture got a little bit distance. They were right there on us, and then headed off to Ladder Ranch.
And that was the morning Christian was cooking burritos for us.
That's what I got
Team
the
Graham
picture.
brought out that scrambled eggs and Cholula.
He's got little burritos, and that one, remember, he flipped it like 50 times because he's just like, hey, it's done.
That's my job, getting the work done. That also happened to be the morning that I actually had a full cup of coffee.
That's right.
I think that was the rule for the day.
That was
not
the rule.
leaving
No,
we don't leave
until Jason finishes.
And there's a certain speed he finishes. He's like, hey, I had my coffee.
That's right.
Which brings us to favorite, if there was one piece of gear that worked out for you, that you're like, man,
John.
This would have been a different trip if I had not had X. Pants, gloves, something you brought, camping
Jet
stuff.
oil.
Yeah, probably the thing that worked best for me was, and this whole type of motorcycle riding was all new for me, and I had ordered a tank bag, and it was hard to find a tank bag because my bike's so old and it's all plastic up on the top. It's not a stainless, it's not a steel gas tank, but my tank bag made a huge amount of difference for me, convenience-wise, for the phone and the wallet and electronics and all of that kind of stuff. That was a big deal. And then that trip was the first time I'd really ever made any significant use of the jet boil. And I'm just so impressed with those little cookers, man. It's like 2 minutes and you got cocoa or coffee or ramen or lasagna. Compliments of Mountain House.
All right.
Yeah.
Jay?
Absolutely have to have the pour over coffee in the morning. Non-negotiable, period. I think the other piece of gear on this ride compared to other rides that I've done that worked out very well is actually really lightweight climb, basically dirt bike pants versus my heavy gear, those other climb pants that are full Gore-Tex and have all the Kevlar dotting on them and all that stuff. Those are sweet pants. But when you're at high elevation, slow technical, lot of work, lightweight dirt bike pants, I think that was a really good move. And just really light jersey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a pretty good stove system, like as far as the kettle that collapses. I think it's MSR. No, Sea to Summit. Collapses down, you can cook and all that stuff. But after seeing you guys' jet boils that have the French press in there, I was like, remember we went up to Cabela's, and the only reason I didn't just totally recommit to a whole new system was because it was out. Just that portion of it. I was like, and so I just went and picked up a French press and all that stuff and made some coffee in the morning, but that makes a world of difference.
Yeah.
Well, weren't there like 3 of you guys that had that? Everett and Pete and somebody else had the French press and the jet boil?
A half dozen different ways to get coffee out of coffee beans on that trip.
I just mooched off of you guys.
But you know what, guys? We could
that was one
probably
of them.
have an entire episode on the way Pete prepares his coffee, because it was not just French press. It was some type of wilderness espresso. It was amazing.
What did Steve Klein do? He had some kind of capsule that you pumped air into.
He had that pressure.
And put a pot in there, then pumped it and made some kind of, I don't know. Anyways.
007 coffee.
That is.
I think Ladder Ranch was probably the perfect place to conclude that trip. So if you're thinking about doing the Colorado BDR Ladder Ranch, one thing is you're going to pass it on the way to the finish line
4 times,
and then have to turn around and come back. They had another one. What was the name? Salisbury. There's a big Salisbury Ranch thing, so that's I got confused on that. You had said there's a big truck up there that says Ladder Ranch, so we'd actually passed it. Then we looked for it for a while, but then it came back to it. But little farmhouse on the river, swimming hole.
With a swimming hole.
Man, the boy was like at cloud 9. We all got in there, floating cooler. Thank you, Alex. Got in there and finished the day in the river, the swimming hole.
With some country music.
Some country music. We had a little, whatever it was, a little speaker. And I don't know, probably a couple hours, something like that.
I tell you, my favorite memory was we got to take the Raptor through the river. So driving a truck in a river is not a natural occurrence, right? Well, Don's in the middle, and he sees this 6,000-pound beast coming at him, and he's doing the backstroke, trying to get out of the way. I'm like, no, Don, I see
you. I see you. I saw his hat coming this way, and then I see you turn into the river. Whoa, those turbos kick in, and I'm like, better pick it up, brother.
I'm just floating down the river, lazy river day. Gonna get munched.
Right.
So yeah, awesome. That swimming pool was awesome. It was like 5 feet deep, too.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a couple spots where you're on your tippy toes.
So
great.
So the next day, we decided to get up at 6 in the morning and go down and start the day that way. Some of us did. We went down there. Christian was sleeping, and he said, hey, wake me up if you go, because he heard us talking about it. So I wake him up at like 5:45. I said, hey, you want to go down there? And he was like, no, I think I need to sleep. I'll let you know when I'm ready to wake up. Okay. I get up and start getting dressed. He goes, where are you going? I'm like, swimming hole. Pops right up,
Bink.
Shoots down there, and we jump in there. He didn't want to jump in, so he went with me. So we went in, went all the way under, and then that started the day.
That's a good way to start the day.
And it was awesome. So heading back. Let's go. We're running out of time here. Let's talk about, real quick, favorite memory. Of the ride, one thing that stuck out to you, favorite memory on that ride?
I think for me overall was your brother Steve Osborne just was overwhelmed by the love, the community, the friendship, the camaraderie.
Yeah.
Overwhelmed. He couldn't process it at times.
Yeah. We talk about those green pin dates, and with all the stuff going on, it'd been easy to make excuses to not go. But we talked about doing it. I came a little bit later into the deal, but I'm so glad that we spent that time and got out there. This is the second hit for him. He was a part of the Lance ride that I did years ago, meaning that he didn't have a bike. We shipped in some parts to him in Kansas City. He met us at a jazz festival barbecue. He went and picked up barbecue and all that stuff, and threw my hard boxes on from BMW when they supported us, sponsored us, and all that stuff. And he was just, I remember him going, man, I wish I was going with you. Second ride, a Lineage ride 2019, jumped on there, and he kept asking me, why are they being so nice to me? And Rachel jokingly said, well, you're Jimmy's brother, and he really took that to heart. So he brought it up enough, and I go, he was joking, and she was joking. He goes, well, they're your friends. I go, Steve, you're a good guy, and these are good people. They don't want anything from you. They're your friends. This is what we do. Yeah. And that really impacted him to where on this one, it was the same kind of thing, and definitely changed his life. It's just super, super cool. Yeah. Favorite memory?
I listened to that podcast that you and Steve did the night before we kicked off, just this morning, and it really moved me. I can't imagine how deep the scars are for him and his wife, and I've always struggled with how something that tragic, why it would happen, and I don't have the answer or anything, but I think it was. I don't know that we would have all come together like that, without something like that. But, our hearts go out to Steve and his wife and his son, and having to endure something like that is just unbelievable. And I know you got a little bit of something to talk about as a result of that.
Yeah.
But, I sent him a text this morning saying, just lean on us. We're all here.
Amen.
For sure.
Jay, you got one?
It's an adventure like this has so many aspects to it, and so when you ask me what my favorite part of that was, there's parts about being on the bike and having successes, having victories as an individual, and there's parts where I don't know, it's like what God created, the scenery that you're looking at, it's hard to even fathom where you're standing, and you're just so thankful for that. But I think if it gets right down to it, my morning hugs.
I'm digging those.
So Jason's got a thing. 86er starts the morning hugging everybody.
Everybody gets a hug.
I didn't know that Mike knew he was in that circle until he was in it.
Yeah.
You're like, bring it in. He's like, came in with the awkward, okay, come on. And I thought it was cool how we were sitting there. We started every day with a prayer, every meal, blessing the food. And then I think Neil just felt compelled to, anybody got anything to say? And he's like, I do. And, a guy that's new to the group jumped right in without missing a beat. That was cool.
Yeah.
That was super cool. My favorite memory, and you guys know this because I was going to finish with this, is that one is that that all that stuff is still out there. As far as this is Colorado, we live here. some of that stuff's calling my name. There's that turquoise lake out there. With I got plans for that lake. I'm going to go back out there and probably jump in it, with Christian or whatever.
You seal guys and jumping into
I
cold
know.
water,
What's the deal
man?
with jumping into that water? I told you, man, just wakes you up. Starts your day. We finish. We come back. Everything's done. That night we watch a movie or something. Go back into the in the garage, and he's loading up to get on his bike. Steve is. He's loading everything up. He's getting ready to hit the road, and then he just turns really awkward, and he's like, "Hey, question for you." I'm like, "Yeah, what do you got?" He's like, "Well, I was going to ask you this last night, but then we started watching the movie, and it's just this weird, kind of uncomfortable." I'm like, "Man, there's something wrong." Like, and he goes, "Well, I was going to ask you. Should have done this a long time ago," and again, this is a testament to the love that he felt out here. I just got to set the stage real quick. My brother he's a truck driver, Kansas City, kind of just a rougher kind of guy. He's not a touchy-feely guy, I guess. And I've told you guys this story. My mom used to sneak me a camera and say, "Get a picture of Steve smiling." We would go to family deals, and he would just be in the corner like this, like looking like he's going to cut you to pieces, right? And she's like, "Smile." And if anybody took the picture, he just wouldn't smile. Now, the guy is not that guy. Like he was laughing and doing all that stuff. And when he got around me, that was the deal. We always just kind of got along really, really well. And she'd hear us laughing outside. And she's like, "Why won't he?" So she'd give me the camera, and I'd go outside, and he'd be smoking or whatever. I'd be like hanging out, and we'd ha, ha, ha. And he's like, "Oh, Mom asked you to get around." I'm like, "Yeah, she did." Whatever. So he comes out the last ride, and you saw that opening up, but there was a big question mark. This one, there was no question mark. He was just all in, right? So then he says, "Hey, man, I want to see our grandpa again." So my grandpa, Wayne, I named my son after him. Christian Wayne is named after a man that changed my life, and he's my grandfather. My dad married his mom. So this isn't my blood grandfather, right? As soon as we met, me and that guy had a connection. He was always working on cars. He was always bleeding. He was a vet. When I went off to the SEAL training, he used to joke and go, "You'll never make it. You're not tough enough." Me and so-and-so, we went in. We were so tough, they didn't know where to put us. All this kind of stuff. And then kind of teasing me. I'm like, "Oh, yeah, we'll see." And kind of that. And when we left, he just basically looked at me and said, "You're going to make it. I can tell." Whatever. So just kind of challenged me and named my son after him a lot. Then we lost my dad, a couple years ago, as planning a ride that, he was supposed to be on and all that stuff. I remember the day when he told my dad, that thank you for what you did. Like, you were my dad. You were the guy there taking care of me. And he, just had a special relationship with my dad. We don't really talk about that stuff in my family. And then obviously what happened to Stevie, which is unthinkable that your granddaughter, with the memories you have and all that stuff, just infuriated. Remember when he called me and we first talked, and there were some violent thoughts that we had to hash through that any one of us would have. Right. But he said, "I want to see Grandpa again, and I want to be with our dad again, and I want to see Stevie again. And can I ask you to lead me to Jesus?" And I'm like, I don't know of a better way to finish this ride than have an impact on my family, my brother that I love and grew up with, and we've always had this connection. And I started losing it, and I tell him, "Absolutely, and this is the biggest honor you could ever bestow." I came over and hugged him and everything, and I said, "We get to be together forever, with a grandpa, with my dad, with Stevie." And then she's in a perfect place, and I don't understand what happened. I don't understand why that could happen, but I know that she's not in pain. She got to skip all the stuff we're going through, and we'll be with her again in a day. I said, "Do you mind if I include my family, because this is a teachable moment? This is a huge deal."
Yeah.
He said, "Sure, I don't mind at all." So I go and get the kids, and I tell them, my wife's bawling, she's hugging them, my kids are coming out, and they're saying, it's so funny because I pull out my Bible, and I've got an earmarked thing for this, that in Montana when I lived there, I remember writing a couple of Bible verses in case anybody asked me. Yeah. I don't know if I used that since. You know what I mean? So yeah. The pastor does it, and I've talked to people about it, but when somebody asks you that, it's one of the biggest honors you can ever have. I go through, read the Bible verses to put it in context, and say, "Repeat after me," and it's a done deal, and everybody loves on them. And then I get to call my mom and tell her this, and then she starts bawling. But here's the kind of the eerie part of it was this, is that you guys know that right before I lost my dad, he came out here to support us, able shepherd, and support me, and it was in the exact same spot. So like I had this amazing conversation in the kitchen with my dad. This one was in the garage, but when we said goodbye, I was on the curb while he was saddling up his motorcycle. It's the last time I ever saw him. And I told him that, like, hey, brother, it's kind of freaking me out a little bit because the level of this conversation is the same I had with Dad. And I didn't see him again. So you get home safe. He's like, I will. I'll be careful, all this kind of stuff and whatever. And then he took off and everything. And it was just an amazing, I'm like, this is a perfect day. Like, this wrapped this thing up. And my brother just took a step. His family's in a bad way right now, meaning they're mad and they're scared and they don't understand and all that stuff. And he's like, I'm not sure how Val's going to feel about this. And I said, brother, go lead her. I've never forced you. He's like, you've never made me do anything. And it's like, just show them, lead your family because they need you. He says, I will. And then he drove off, and we've talked several times since then.
Yeah.
But just good stuff.
Absolutely.
That will always be my favorite memory of this trip.
Yeah.
So I got to text all you guys and post it on there and say thank you for being a part of that. The love that he felt on this deal is no small part of that decision that he made. It's going to affect him and secure his eternity.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, guys.
That's perfect.
Yes.
Awesome. All right. So on that, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Give us a 5-star rating right now and write a review. We love this. If you're going to ask you, like, what would this have to do with protector culture? Man, more than you could ever know. Some of the stuff that bonded together, the bonding that happens on these trips has been so strong that some of us have talked about doing annual ones or more than that because it's such an amazing tool to bring people together. When people are together and they legitimately care for you, they would take care of you. Right now, I just met Mark, and if Mark called me right now and needed something, I'd be in my truck already.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because of 7 to 9 days that you spend together, you get to know somebody, and now you know them.
Right.
And when people know you, care about you, they're part of your circle, they're going to help you out because it's the right thing to do. So it's a big deal. So help us spread the word, help us do this, and put out the word about what we're doing because your community needs it too, so you can be a leader in that. And if you want to learn more about the program, check us out on ableshepherd.com. That's ABLESHEP. I do this all the time. I get caught right in the middle of it. ABLESHEPHERD.com. Thanks a lot, guys. Until we see you again, take care of one another. God bless you.